Welcome to DAExMachiNation. Join us as we explore the mysteries of this world. Cryptids, monsters, macabre tales, and horror stories abound. Could they be true? Are monsters real?
Good evening, folks, and thank you all for joining us another edition of DAExMachiNation. In the house with me is Robbie, aka Dusty Rhodes, the American Dream, Reigns. And unfortunately, Doc and Steve couldn't be here tonight. Doc's in Texas teaching a class, and Steve's pulling overtime shift. So you just have to put up with the two of us bumbling rednecks getting through things. Robbie, how are you doing, brother?
Doing good, cautiously. Long as everything keeps going the way it's going over there, I'll still be going good. It is.
Robbie seems distracted. It's because Clemson's playing.
It's 21-7 right now in ACC championship, so we're gonna keep it going.
Well, I'm kind of excited about talking about the show tonight.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of my favorite topics. I love this.
This one's going to be going down the rabbit hole quite literally,
which is good for us because we never do that.
Yeah, we never do that. We got so much to say on this. We might actually stay mostly on topic. That remains to be seen, but we will probably stay at least somewhat on topic. Robbie, what first got you into wanting to know more about Antarctica and Atlantis and the Hollow Earth?
Well, obviously Atlantis, the first thing, watching or reading the Aquaman comics and Namor and things like that. Those are the first things that got me.
Remember that old TV show, The Man from Atlantis?
Yeah, that
that one too.
Stuff like that was the first thing that kind of got, brought Atlantis to the forefront. Then, you just start to kind of hearing, because sometimes it kind of permeates pop culture or mainstream and you hear stuff about it, but it's still, Atlantis is one of those weird things where it's kind of on the cryptid side, but it's kind of it walks that line. People that real scientists, quote unquote, will talk about it, but it's still kind of over here too. So it's just one of them anomalies that just kind of both sides get to talk about. So, but as far as, obviously like I said, the comic books kind of got me first, telling me what it was. And of course I've read, Jules Verne's books about it. And that's a pretty good take on it. How, Mysterious Island, I think, is where they really kind of it's kind of mentioned in other, or kind of offhandedly mentioned, but I think Mysterious Islands when they first really, or when he really kind of plays into the Atlantis thing of the floods and or however that island rises and sinks every so however many years, and that technically is part of Atlantis, or however you word. It's been so long since I read that one. Those are kind of the few things that I got there, or that got me interested in it at first.
Well, the more technology advances, the more we start to understand things that may not be as big a mystery as we once thought they were. And there was something that kind of recently stumbled across that just fits right in with this. There was, and somebody posted this on Facebook. So anything you find on Facebook, of course, you've got to take with a grain of salt. But I looked into this one, and I'm going to bring this image up and just kind of let you read this for yourself. But back during the last ice age, which we believe was just a few thousand years ago, actually we're still coming out of the ice age, but when glaciers covered most of, the northern hemisphere. I mean, they came as far down as the Midwest. At that time, the ocean would have been about 400 to 500 feet shallower because all the water was involved in the ice. But somebody was recently looking at estimated, land masses if the ocean was 400 feet deep, shallower. So if the ocean level dropped by 400 feet, we would get something like this. Now, notice that red circle right there in the middle is straight off of the Azores. Well, it's right where the Azores would be, but it's straight off of Gibraltar, right where Plato said it would be. There's a massive landmass there about the size of England.
that the Isle of Hook'em Horns?
Yeah, it does kind of look like a Texas Longhorn, but that's actually where the Azores would be today.
That's interesting.
Well, let me throw that right down the rabbit hole just a little farther. Let me bring up a current day satellite map of the Azores. Okay, let's take a look at this. Now, granted, this is Google Maps. Anybody can look this up. And this is of the Azores. Now, that map that we just looked at that had the longhorn shape, you can see that right here.
Yep, you sure can.
It is actually there, and those are underwater ridges. But they talked about Atlantis was a city of rings. We get a little closer. What does this look like right here?
It's definitely circular. There's at least what, 2 or 3?
There's the remnants of a center point and at least 2 other rings. And that would be in less than 400 feet of water today. And this was, if this part was above water at that time, this would be perfect for a sheltered harbor.
Though, that kind of almost reminds me, and I know this was a landlocked, and it's, but just to think of something that kind of reminds me of that, Gondor in Middle Earth. You remember how it was ringed up?
Yeah, the city, each ring was slightly higher.
Yeah, that's kind of what that reminds me of. You got your lower ring where the ports and docks would be, and all probably the lower tiers of society would be, and then it just gradually kind of worked its way up. Kind of like another story that I just read. Maybe was it Heart of Iron or something like that?
Where the cities were built that way.
Yep.
Well, Northwest Native Tracker just mentioned the Bimini Road, and this is something we've talked about on here before. If you extended the Bimini Road out from over about here, the Bimini's over here by Puerto Rico. If you extended the Bimini Road, look what that runs straight into.
Right into one of them horns.
Yep.
Maybe that's what those horns are. Maybe
part of an old road system.
Yeah, maybe you're just. Because looking at now, when you put that first picture up, it just looked like the Texas Longhorn symbol, but now it looks like it extends on both sides, and that's just that center point is just what ends up looking like the skull. But what comes off as the quote unquote horns, you can follow it on around. There's nothing broken on it. So maybe
series of straight lines out here.
Well, what I'm saying,
straight lines don't normally occur in nature.
So the picture you brought up before, maybe that was the last of, as it was being flooded, or the city was sinking or whatever. That was just what the last vestige of what was above the ground or above the ocean. Maybe, another couple 100 feet lower, and you would have seen all that road.
Well, Plato was quoted as saying, "But at a later time there occurred portentous earthquakes and floods, and one grievous day and night befell them, when the whole body of your warriors was swallowed up by the earth, and the island of Atlantis in like manner was swallowed up by the sea and vanished." Now that was, quote from Plato, and Plato lived, what was it, like 850 BC, and they believe that Atlantis was somewhere around 9600 BC. Now, okay, what if, now I still think that this has something to do with it, that it might have been part of their power at the time, but what if the sea that he's talking that swallowed Atlantis wasn't water? What is the Sahara Desert if nothing but a sand sea?
Yeah, well, it's called the Sea of Sand.
Let me switch this. Now look at this. This is in the middle of the Sahara. A city built on rings.
Interesting.
It's known as the Eye of the Sahara. And it can be seen from orbit. Things that make you go,
Yeah, that definitely raises an eyebrow.
Oh, it raises a lot of eyebrows for me. Big Bird said the Sahara used to be water. Yeah, but that's the Sahara. Robert D said some kind of mining going on long ago. There's no record of it. We've got a super chat from Kelly Conley. Thank you so much. And we had one earlier that I forgot to mention.
I was trying to wait for a spot where you say something. We just kind of.
Oh, it was also from Kelly. Thank you so much. Thank you for both your super chats, Kelly. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly.
I meant to get back to that and hadn't had a chance to do it. I was kind of on a tear. Marcus Antonio says it's just a weird coincidence. Maybe it is. Maybe it isn't. And I'm not saying that, by using Google Maps, I found Atlantis. But to me, it's just extremely.
Well, maybe what you found was maybe Atlantis was just a prototype, or not a prototype, but a archetype that other cultures copied how they built their cities.
Maybe it was the same culture in different places.
Yeah, that too. Okay, you can use prototype for that. They built one and then saw that it worked and went out and built the other one.
Well, we've got that vast circular section that looks like possibly the ruins of rings off the Azores in less than 400 feet of water, and we've got the Eye of the Sahara. They both can't be Atlantis, but they could be Atlantean cities.
Yeah.
Because Atlantis was not just a city, it was a lost continent.
Well, if you want to use some of the stuff that they used in DC Comics, there were 7 kingdoms. And
I don't know how. Yeah, I meant it's probably just making it for DC, but it is interesting. There would be, if it was a civilization, there would be multiple areas.
Yeah, actually, that's I've heard some of the lore that talks about more than one continent or civilization or kingdom, or however you want to look at it. Neptune was actually supposedly, the ruler over all these different kingdoms. And, I think they took liberties with the movies, obviously, and the comic books and things like that, and added stuff to it. But I think that premise is probably pulled from something.
Yeah, it does make a certain amount of sense. But if you're in a civilization, and Atlantis was believed to be an advanced technology we don't even understand today. If they were an advanced technology and one city was being swallowed by the Sahara and the other was sinking into the ocean, where would you go? Enter the Piri Reis map.
Mm-hmm.
The Piri Reis map is as we've talked before, the Piri Reis map is a map of Antarctica without ice on it, showing trade routes and civilizations. And lo and behold, there's also a place in Antarctica that it looks very much like a city made out of rings. Let me see if I can find that map. Give me just a second. It may take me a minute to find that one. I've only seen pictures of it. I've never actually found it on the map. I think that section is not available on Google Maps. because it's not. I'm not seeing anything that looks even remotely like the images I saw. I'll talk to William Nighthawk. I believe he's the one that sent me the image of the city of rings beneath the ice in Atlantis, in Antarctica. But we know for a fact we've got the Piri Reis map.
Yep.
And that is Antarctica without ice on it, and it shows not only marked settlements, but also marked like citadels, things like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because there was castle walls and ramparts and all kinds of stuff like that all over that map.
Yeah. In fact, I can
Docks,
bring up some images. I can bring up some images from the Piri Reis map.
boat docks, not our dock.
Yeah. Let me find that. There we go. There's my scans. Okay. And the following images are all taken from our scans taken from the Piri Reis map. I have a large copy of the Piri Reis map, and I took these images myself. Well, my son Nick helped me. But if you look at this, let me see if I can turn this. There we go. We're seeing settlements and ships and the coastline, which the United States Navy identified as being part of Antarctica. Now we're seeing. Remember the creature from South America that's said to have its face in the middle of its body?
The Mapinguari.
Look at that.
Yep. Yeah.
And that looks like a dogman type creature. That's definitely some sort of deer with large mandibles. Or maybe, well, it looks like it's got hooves, but it's got a bushy tail, almost like a wolf. Huh. Didn't notice that before. And some of these animals, horn. Yeah, these animals they're depicting are not animals we're familiar with. And that is some form of Arabic written on the map, because Piri Reis was a Turkish admiral. Now look at all this. This looks like a type of elephant.
Some type of large flightless bird.
Mm-hmm. This is all on the Piri Reis map, folks. Let me go to the next image. That's that same section, just closed in just on that section. Yeah, it looks like maybe an emu or an ostrich. It looks like a short trunk, if not that, unless that's part of the trunk that's kind of faded. Yeah, it's like some sort of elephant.
House, I didn't see you on that map. Where?
Is that House?
He said there's a man bear pig somewhere on there. I said I didn't see his picture on there.
But these are all depicting settlements, probably like walled citadels.
Yeah, there's more.
And there are two what look almost like dogman-like creatures. Again, great evidence of the cynocephaly.
Yeah. Because how old is this map?
It's the Piri Reis map is like from the 8th century, but it's believed to be a copy of a far older map, and they don't know where Piri Reis got it.
So at least 8th century.
At least 8th century. There's some sort of looks like a toucan type bird. Another fortification. Another fortification. More birds. And again, this is a map of Antarctica. The United States Navy proved that in 1972 with high-resolution sonar scans through the ice. Another strange-looking animal.
That's another one of them cows with a weird curly horns on top of its head.
Yeah. And these islands, they've noticed the writing out here, these islands have names. So they were there often enough that they were naming places on the map.
Well, and if nothing else, look at the ships there.
Yeah.
Those ships are way more advanced than what you would see on a map if you're just starting to do have the mapping skill to do something like this. So that proves this is probably a copy of something a lot older, right there.
Well, yeah, the look at the rigging on this ship. That doesn't really look like anything I'm familiar with. But then again, I'm no expert on ships. And this up here looks like, I don't know, like a giant fish or something. Right here.
Yeah, it sure does.
It looks like some sort of fish. And they drew it very large.
Yeah, comparatively to everything else. But that little thing right there beside the what could be the Mapinguari looks like it could be a Kushtaka, the otter man.
Mm-hmm. Well, these are definitely things that would qualify as cryptids in our lore. And there's another image of that big fish, but it looks like, well, if you could take that from scale, from people crouched next to it, apparently looks like they were capturing and catching giant fish of some sort. I don't know what this says over here. This is an old dialect of Arabic that I don't even think we could translate, especially as grainy as it is.
It would be nice if that could be translated. I would love to know what that says.
Well, the original is actually hanging in a museum in Turkey. So I would imagine somewhere there exists a translation. I just don't have access to it. And that's the Piri Reis map, or at least the section I have of it.
That map's interesting. I mean,
that map still makes me scratch my head and wonder. But with the existence of if Plato's saying that it was like 6500 BC when Atlantis disappeared, what if there was no ice on Antarctica at that time?
And if you want to go ahead and tie it into it, there could already be ways that they were already traveling, regardless of water, ice, or anything. Because, I've talked about that other book that I read before, the Primal Hunter series.
Irene Duet says it's Sumerian, so there may not be a translation for it. I think Sumerian's a dead language.
Probably so. But, we've talked about that Primal Hunter series that I read. I can't remember who wrote it right off, unless you just can pull it out of thin air.
I'll Google it.
But
what's it called?
Primal Hunter. Or that may be it's like The Last Hunter, Primal Hunter, and but the main basis of that story is kind of like our Hollow Earth theory.
Is it by a guy called Zogarth?
Yes, I think that's it.
Okay.
But he basically this kid, the main character in the book, he was born on Antarctica because his parents were scientists, but he was like the first person born on Antarctica in however many years it had been, and his birth caused a prophecy to start. So leaving all that stuff out of it, the basic premise of it was that Antarctica was like the gateway to these underground kingdoms. Atlantis was one of them. what else was it? What is
Lemuria.
Yes, Lemuria was one of them. What is Hades? What was his realm? It's not called Hell, but it's called. You know what I'm talking about, though.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what Greek mythology is not my.
No, if Taylor was here, she'd get it just like that. But anyway, that was one of them. Asgard was one of them.
Greg House says Sumerian may be Ghibli.
Could be. But anyway, basically, there was Antarctica was one of the entrance points to this, and all these demigods that we knew.
Was it Tartarus?
Tartarus, that's it.
Yes. Josh Dalton just threw that in there. Thanks, Josh.
Thanks, General. Yes, Tartarus. But all the demigods that we knew and worshiped, they were the men of renown. They were actually some of them were actually demons. There was a lot of stuff with Nephilim and things like that in it too.
Well, Plato did say that Atlantis was populated by a race of near gods.
Well, that's what it. Because he had Thor was in the book, Odin, Hades, and basically they all lived when people started getting smart. Basically, they all moved underground. Is what it boils down to. No, Jeremy Robinson didn't like this.
If Antarctica was covering with ice, if the Atlantean civilization, obviously it predates ours. If the Atlantean civilization was experiencing icing of Antarctica, the sinking of the capital out near the Azores, and the eye of the Sahara swallowing another city, underground may have been their only option. At that time, the surface was probably very inhospitable for them. And like you and I have said, we don't think that the Earth is hollow like a giant egg. We think it's riddled with these massive pockets,
like honeycomb.
Right, because the crust of the Earth is thousands of miles thick. There could easily be caverns the size of Manhattan that would have no problem existing.
Yeah. That's kind of why we had the discussion on Jules Verne, with some of the stuff that he wrote about. Journey to the center of the Earth. He wrote about that, and they hadn't even discovered anything like that at that time. Now, here, 10, 15 years ago, is when they found that whole entire ecosystem that was
Thailand.
It was almost like
no, it's not in Thailand. It's in Vietnam.
Yeah, but it was just like what he
has its own rivers and ecosystem and
bioluminescence for light. I mean, it was just it's like.
And that's virtually cut off from the upper world, other than a small opening where people can climb down through. That's how they discovered it. But who's to say that same kind of biodiversity couldn't exist much deeper and without direct access to the surface?
So, I mean, you kind of wonder sometimes, what did Jules Verne know?
I think a lot of those guys that came up with, like Jules Verne and H.G. Wells, I think those guys were seeing something that most of us never see. I mean, I think to a certain extent, writers have this ability to tap into a subconsciousness where they see these stories unfold, and then write them down. But these guys were seeing things that were generations ahead of their time.
But I'm glad you hit on that. That's a good point, because I've heard you say that many times about when you're writing stuff for Margolin, you're like, where in the world did that come from? You're writing it, but it's almost like another person is talking through you.
Now, some of these characters, the dialogue writes itself with these characters, and I like to think it's because they're so well developed. But maybe somewhere in my subconscious, I'm just observing something in somewhere off in the multiverse.
Well, I'm not saying that I believe in all that, like they show in Marvel and all that kind of stuff, but I'm not so naive to think that we are the only intelligent life that was created in this whole entire galaxy. So there could be something going on somewhere. I think it would be asinine of me to say that, and a little bit vain, say, "Oh no, we're the only intelligent life that exists." I don't think you can say that. So, who's to say you're not getting, when you're tuning that radio in, you're not getting that white noise in your head from somewhere else, which, that movie, you remember that movie? That was more along the lines of time travel, but that's the same type premise. Tuning that radio in and being able to talk to his dad, and he was talking to his dad in the past.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff going on in this world that we don't understand, and for us to say we got it all figured out, I just don't think that that's something that we can sit here and. I just think that people who say they know everything and say we've got it all figured out, and there's absolutely no way that something like this could exist, or those are the people that I'm worried about.
Yeah, and Lord knows I don't have it all figured out. I don't have.
Oh no.
We don't make any claim to being any kind of expert on anything. But I read once that H.P. Lovecraft said that his stories came from visions of another realm.
Well, that wouldn't surprise me because his stories are pretty otherworldly.
Yeah, and supposedly J.R.R. Tolkien said that his visions of Middle Earth that came to him in dreams.
Well, I mean, I guess Stephen King's did too. Just it was cocaine fueled dreams.
Yeah, that's a whole other vision quest.
Yeah, that's a whole different kind of sweat lodge right there.
No wonder he wrote Tears of the Dragon. He was chasing the dragon.
Yeah.
But still, that I think that we have a very real possibility that the disappearance of Atlantis, the existence of civilizations on the Piri Reis map, and the Hollow Earth theory may very well possibly be connected. It just makes sense that whatever advanced civilization that Atlantis had, they could have had colonies or civilizations of their own on Antarctica. And when, like I said, Antarctica started freezing and the Sahara was swallowing another city and the ocean was crouching in on the other cities, underground might have seemed like a very viable option.
What do we know? And just like we've talked about in our cryptid stuff, what do we know from nature? What do we know from other advanced civilizations? When they're advanced, what do? They start exploring. They reach out. They start wanting to populate. I mean, Vikings, Romans, Chinese, Mongolians, all the major cultures spread out and spread their culture throughout the world. So why would these Atlanteans or Antarcticans or any of these others be any different?
Exactly. And on the Piri Reis map, if there is an Atlantean connection to Antarctica pre-ice, we are seeing the drawings of Bigfoot and Dogman-like creatures, something that looks like the Mapinguari. We're seeing these cryptid images on the Piri Reis map, which, like I was saying, the Piri Reis map dates to the 8th century, but they believe it's a copy of a far older map. If that's the case, if it does have Atlantean origins, then we're seeing cryptids that are being described by eyewitnesses today, recorded on the margins and on the land masses of the Piri Reis map. Now, if those civilizations went underground because things were getting bad, notice that the majority of cryptid sightings are near major cave systems. Maybe throwing darts at a dartboard here, but I think that's hitting pretty close to the what we're finding.
We may be, but we've been hitting dang close to the bullseye every time we throw the darts.
That's true. Miss Lene says the bottom of the hour. Let's go ahead and do our one, count them one, the affiliate link for tonight. And Robbie's got some stuff to show off. Why don't we hear from a quick word from Lone Wolf Customs?
Well, thank you there, brother. Yeah, some of y'all been wanting to know and wanting to see samples of the blades we've got coming. So DA and I've been talking and figuring out how we can do that, because obviously it's hard to make a bunch of blades, actual blades to show. That one took me, a couple hours just to bang that out. So putting the laser engraver to use, we now have these fine wooden blanks that we can use, or I can use to actually make it, show people what we've got. And I just did 4 quick ones today, but eventually I'll probably have these numbered or labeled or something like that, so when somebody says, hey, I want number 1 or whatever with blah blah blah, we can, it'll be just a little bit more streamlined way of picking up how we can get your blade to you. So just like a little mini buoy here. This is not going to be the Arkansas toothpick for Declan, but this may be for one of the other nightmare hunters. Who knows? Maybe a little fella that carried a smaller knife, little Doc. I don't know. Maybe.
It's a great sword for Doc.
Yeah, I mean, that's a 2-handed sword for him.
It's a freaking Zweihander.
We got a nice little camp knife, little tactical combat knife here. Maybe something good for. This may be a good thing for Margolin. This may be a good Margolin tactical knife. I don't know. We haven't decided. DA's got all these designs in pictures. This is just a little chef's knife, so I doubt this will be as far as one of the. I don't know. Maybe Jay Matoska's cooking knife. Who knows?
Micah, he's always cooking.
Yeah. So
he's always cooking because he's always hungry.
Yep. And another little scout knife. So, things are working.
Scout Hunter Scout.
Yep. Things are working. Just trying to keep y'all informed, because, I've asked for all the email, and I've gotten emails from y'all. So thank y'all, the ones that have emailed and said they're interested. So, got a few more things that are coming. Should be here tomorrow. Got a sharpening jig, or a grinding jig rather, that I can set the angle and grind the bevels on the knife a lot easier. So they
Justin
should be.
Wants to know, is that a paracord cutter on that one?
On which one? You talking about the one on the camp knife right there?
Probably.
Yeah, that would probably what that, or just some kind of little slicer. That's probably what I would make it into. And those are fairly easy to make. You can just take a round file, cut into it, and sharpen it out, and make a good little rope cutter. So,
and if you're interested, reach out to Robbie. I'm putting his contact information up right now. And let him know which ones you like, and there will be more. Sonia says Jay would make wahampi with fry bread. Yeah, very much so. Anywho, now back to the shoe. Reach out to Robbie through Lone Wolf Customs. The link is right there. Email as well. But again, to me that just makes absolute sense that the Atlantis disappears. The civilization in the Sahara disappears. The civilizations on Antarctica disappear. And at the time, the world was a pretty inhospitable place as we're coming out of an ice age. Underground might have seemed like a very viable option, especially if they had advanced technology. And I would assume they're probably still down there. And the fact that they made note of creatures like the cynocephali or Bigfoot type creatures, even the Mapinguari, and even today our sightings are close to cave systems. To me, that just really, it just kind of gels this all together.
Yeah. I mean, what have we always said? All these lore and ghost stories, spooky stories, all this stuff comes from somewhere.
Yeah.
There's a grain of truth to it somewhere. And it seems like the further down the rabbit hole we go, in my opinion, it seems like the closer we get to, we possibly could be, and I ain't going to say we got 100% definite answer. That's not what I'm saying. But I say we've got a very strong theory as to,
Definitely.
where some of this stuff may have originated from.
Yeah, it may not 100% connect, but we're finding connections here. And I don't know, that's still, to think that there might be an advanced civilization hundreds of feet below my feet right now, that's kind of a terrifying thought, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, and like I said, I think that, when we originally started talking about caves and the hollow earth and all this kind of stuff, there was kind of some pushback at first, but I think the harder we've dug into it and the more we've dug our heels in, so to speak, I think we've really come up with a strong, solid theory. I mean, it's as good as any other theory out there, in my opinion.
I think it holds water. I really do. And I think it, I think not only is the theory fairly sound, I think it really does explain a lot of these mysteries in a cogent way that that lets us understand what happened. I mean, look at some of the civilizations that disappeared. The Toltecs and the Incas and the Mayans. Those were advanced civilizations. And yeah, a lot of them faced problems when Europeans first started coming to this continent, but the Toltecs vanished long before.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of these, just like you said, a lot of these cultures, when they saw things were starting to go south, so to speak, and who's to say some of this stuff going south? Maybe it was brought on by the Atlanteans. Maybe they were a little too advanced for everybody's own good. Maybe they did something and dabbled in something they shouldn't have and got something started they shouldn't have. Maybe that's what caused everybody to have to do that. Maybe they were the ones that set loose all these cryptids on people. Who knows?
One of the things they were saying about the Great Pyramids of Giza is the biggest ones are older than we really expected. That they believe that they were much, much older, and they were originally covered not with the sandstone that we see today. They were originally covered with I believe it was white granite. They looked very different when they were built, and they were capped with gold. And they were the same kind of generator that tapped into the Earth's magnetic energy, the magnetic energy of the Earth. They were tapping into that the same way that Tesla's broadcast energy tower did. And I think Tesla had a more deeper understanding of how the EM field of this planet works than we'll ever give him credit. But the Egyptians were working on the same model. So what happens if, say, the Atlantean society used that same type of energy to siphon off energy from the Earth to power everything? And what if they dug too deep? What if they used too much, and that caused the ice age? That caused the downfall, the economic decline that forced them underground.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Because if you really look at all the myths and legends about Atlantis, and most all the comic books, most all the movies, everything, what's the one common denominator between all those? They were far too advanced, and they did something they shouldn't have done, and that's what caused the destruction of the city. That's common through just about every single source legend about Atlantis. They were too big for their britches, and they got punished.
Mhm.
However you want to cut it, that's the cut and dry of it. Maybe not 100% accurate that way, but that's the gist of it. From just about across the board.
Philip Croyle says, don't forget that it's been found in the original translation was wrong. Atlantis didn't sink, but rose. And if that's the case, then I would put money that spot in the eye of the Sahara was Atlantis. Good night, Patricia. I hope you get feeling better. Curtis Murray says, maybe they mastered the oceans like we have the sky. The UFO sightings around nuclear power plants may be them trying to protect their civilization. It very well could be, because what do we do with our nuclear waste? We bury it deep.
Mm-hmm.
Josh Dalton said they released Durin's Bane, a Balrog of Morgoth.
Everybody, Doc said to tell you all, hey, he loves you. He'll see you on Wednesday. He missed Miss Angie's birthday while he was teaching, so he took her out for a date tonight. We want to tell y'all, hey, he loves you, and he'll see you Wednesday. Message from the little man. But yeah, I mean, like we say, all these things have got to come from some kernel or grain of truth. Why is that a common denominator through all these stories? I think it probably is a common denominator because that's probably what was going on. Maybe it wasn't as catastrophic as some of these legends have made it sound, but obviously it was something enough to make them end up. I was gonna say something like 6 feet under, but it was a lot more than 6 feet. It's like what, 60,000 feet probably.
Brent says, DA, are we doing story night on Sunday? Yes, sir. As far as I know, we are. We are still
book 2.
Yep.
Yeah, because we finished book 1 of Ragnarok.
And if I'm mispronouncing the name of the map, it's a Turkish name from the 8th century. Yeah, and I'm an Ozarks hillbilly, so if I'm pronouncing it wrong, I'm sorry.
How else would you pronounce it? That's the way it looks.
Anyway, sorry, kind of got my train of thought derailed there a second. Northwest Native Tracker says, I've read Tesla's notes. I understand how his tech works. It's the same as the ancients. It's a sympathetic power system based on our planet's natural power. Supposedly, Tesla's broadcast tower worked on the same principle that the Great Pyramid at Cheops was supposed to be. It was a giant battery, essentially. What it was used for, don't know. But we do know the ancient Egyptians had batteries. They found them in the tombs of pharaohs.
Yeah.
What did they need electricity for? We don't know.
Well, there's a lot of things that Egyptians had that we have no clue why they had them or needed them. I mean, even if you look at something as simple as a pillow, we make those squishy pillows out of, foam rubber and things like that. But you look at how advanced pillows from like ancient Egypt and Japan, the early Japanese dynasties, they were it fit. I'm taking this from the pillow guy, but it's true. I mean, you can go back and look at the ancient text. They knew that a square pillow fit this shape.
Mm-hmm.
It's more advanced than what we've got.
Well, it's amazing the things that in our modern society we've either overcomplicated or forgotten. Look at how the pioneers used to keep food refrigerated without electricity. They stored food for generations long before we had electricity to do it for us.
It's like I've always said, you're my age, so around my age, you understand this. You remember when we used to make mixtapes and things like that?
Mm-hmm.
I had a tape and you liked it, and I made you a copy of that tape. Then Doc found that tape or heard you playing that tape. And said, man, I like that. And you made Doc a copy of that tape off your copy. And then Doc makes Steve a copy of that tape. By the time it gets to Steve, how good a quality is that?
Not great.
Not great. We're walking around as copies of copies of copies of copies of copies. I'm sorry, folks. We get dumber. Hate to spoil it for you, but that's brass tacks. I mean, you know, it's what happens when you make copies of copies of copies of copies of copies. If you don't believe me, watch Multiplicity. We're gonna eat a dolphin. So, I had to do it at least once tonight.
Of course. I would expect no less, sir.
Got to keep you expecting.
Someone asked if we were going to get Fred on. I'm waiting to hear back from Fred. I don't want to bug him. I don't know what kind of medical issues he had with his father, but I sent him an email. I'm just waiting for him to get back. So we are planning on to have Fred back on when it's good for him.
But on a good note, past that, I talked to Jesus today, and he's going to be getting. He was thinking about coming on tonight, but he had something to do with his family. He's going to get with me tomorrow, and we're going to have Jesus Payon back on probably sometime in the very near future.
And I'm looking forward to it. I love that guy. Kevin Bode says, I watched a video that leaned towards the deserts being caused by a nuclear war. And if that's plausible, there would have been nuclear winter causing the ice age with mass destruction. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, supposedly at one time, the Sahara Desert was, lush vegetation, and now it's nothing but sand. So, that would explain a lot.
Well,
some sort of devastation on a
answer
massive
me this.
scale.
Answer me this. If we had, let's say that premise is true, and there had been a nuclear war, would that explain why radiocarbon dating is no good, and why I think you can radiocarbon date a live seal and the readings come back that it's 10 million years old, but you can have a fossil that says it's 2 years old? Would that cause stuff like that to happen? Mess with the radioactive isotopes and things like that?
Something that would mess with the radioactive isotopes would definitely cause carbon dating to go off the chart.
That is a known phenomenon that happens. That's why people ask so many times, why do we still use radiocarbon dating on things? Because it's been fouled up so many times, it's not even funny. So I just wondered if something like that would, if there had been something like that and there was a nuclear bomb that went off, or some type of nuclear disaster,
some sort of massively powerful device. Maz says Fred hasn't posted on his own channel for quite a while. I hope everything's okay with Fred. Fred's an awesome guy, and I hope everything's going okay for him. I don't want to bug him.
Well, it had to be serious for Fred to not come on.
Right. Yeah, it had to be something fairly serious, and I hope everything's okay, and definitely keep Fred and his family in your prayers. Just to make sure they're all right. Northwest Tracker says the Sodom and Gomorrah sites that have been found there are sulfur balls that are only created when a nuke goes off. Again, makes a great deal of sense. Michelle Richardson says, I read somewhere that because I have AB blood type, I'm from Atlantis. I hadn't heard that one. I've got a fairly rare blood type myself. I have B negative. Only like 2% of the world's population have B negative blood.
Which one is the universal donor?
I think O positive is the donor and O negative is the universal receiver.
I think I've got the universal donor. I think anybody, because the blood connection is always calling me, please come give blood, because anybody can have mine.
Lyle McThompson says if there's a nuclear explosion, would there still be radiation? Maybe, depending on the type of bomb it was. We were talking about in the 80s what they call a neutron bomb, which would have left next to no radiation behind after a detonation.
Well, I mean, just look at Chernobyl. It's still no man's
It's still
land.
leaking radiation, yeah.
But Hiroshima and Nagasaki are livable now.
Yeah, they cleaned them up and rebuilt the cities.
I said Nagasaki. I was thinking about the big sword on a stick.
The Naginata. I figured you just rednecked it.
One of them Nagas.
3D Havoc says, I can accept all the blood. I must be a vampire. But, you know, chasing this down the rabbit hole, you know, what if it wasn't a natural disaster? What if they screwed up the environment so bad they had to go below ground until it was safe to come back up?
Well, I mean, think about it. Einstein discovered, you know, the basis of nuclear reaction. So he had to have gotten his studies from somewhere. Maybe they were on to nuclear power,
or something even
that
we haven't even discovered yet.
Yeah.
Well, I also remember what was it? I can't remember the name of the operation, but where Commodore Perry went to the South Pole and claimed he flew over a giant entryway into the hollow Earth and encountered flying saucers and advanced technology.
Yeah, we talked about that on one of our Antarctica shows.
Can't remember the name of the operation, but not off the top of my head. But you know that was a U.S. Navy admiral that talked about that. Philip Croyle says, in the Bible, 10 tribes fled the east and vanished from Scripture. Atlantis was supposedly ruled by 10 kings. City of Enoch rose from the earth and into the heavens. Operation High Jump. Yeah, Jay, you're right. Operation High Jump. And you know we see examples of advanced technology that we still don't understand. I mean, they pop up to all of the time, all over the place. Like what do they call it? The Antikythera device that was found on a Roman shipwreck. We don't know what it was, and it was so complicated we can't duplicate it.
Well, we can't figure out how they built the pyramids. We cannot figure out how, with their technology and their manpower and their limited modes of transportation and moving stuff like it. Because they said some of those rocks, those pyramid or the stones that those pyramids are shaped out of, some of those things came from 3,000 miles away. How? We can't figure that out. That's just their, you know, their construction, their engineering. If you can't figure that out, you might as well hang it up on the other stuff. If you can't figure out how they built the shelters that they worked inside of, you ain't figuring nothing else out. We weren't recorded on Memorex, folks. Sorry.
No kid. Check this out. JDW 2150 says, I went to the same hospital for decades, a couple of surgeries, and they still had no idea of my blood type. My employer at the PD made me go get typed for the marking on my ballistic vest. Huh.
That doesn't surprise me.
Philip Croyle says Operation High Jump was a complete failure. They had to flee. Yeah, Admiral Byrd mentions that they were hopelessly outmatched, but he also believed that if you flew into that cave, you would come out at a similar entrance at the North Pole. and I don't think that was ever proven. But I really don't think that the Earth is hollow like a giant egg. But I think massive ecosystems do exist in different places and at different depths in the Earth's crust, and they could very well be below ocean level. Because even the deepest part of the ocean, which is what do they call it, the Laurentian abyss, uh,
Mhm.
at the bottom of the Marianas Trench, the deepest abyss is only like what 30,000 feet deep, and when you look at that, that's only 6 miles, and the crust is thousands of miles thick.
Well, you know, I don't think that, and I know we try not to get into religion and things like that. I don't think we're living on the same planet now as it was thousands of years ago. Just for simple fact that if you look, like you said, how deep those parts of the ocean are, you could put the Empire State Building on top of the Sears building, on top of the Chrysler building, and still they wouldn't be outside of the Marianas Trench.
Yeah, that's some deep water.
Yeah. I think we're living on basically what's a graveyard of what the Earth used to be.
Well, look at some of the examples of roads in Europe. They started digging down through some of these old roads because each civilization built the roads on top of the pre-existing roads. And there was one place that they went beneath the Roman roads and were finding old trails. And once they got to a certain depth, they found asphalt. How's that?
Yeah, makes you wonder, don't it?
Yeah, how could they find asphalt when it was what they call macadam wasn't invented until I believe the 1800s?
Well, how did Da Vinci come up with basically what was a helicopter? I mean, parachutes. All this stuff that he came up with, or we say he came up with it. How we know he didn't just copy it from something he saw from another civilization? That goes back to what we've talked about before. I would love to know what was in the Library of Alexandria.
I would love to have as well.
Well,
Maz says they CAT scanned the Antikythera device and were able to duplicate it. Someone also commented that it was for plotting celestial movement. Um, yeah, now that you mentioned that, I do remember reading that. But the thing about it is for them to have built that way back then, the math behind it is mind blowing. But for them to be able to build that, long before modern computers or modern mathematical solutions and formula, for them to have built that way back then is just really mind blowing. Steve Padden pointed out there is a treaty among multiple nations, that multiple countries regarding Antarctica with it not being allowed to be explored.
yep.
As a civilian, you cannot go to Antarctica unless it's under very controlled circumstances. They do occasional groups, but you're not allowed to go exploring. They say it's dangerous, that there are crevasses and people can disappear, but they've explored it, and there are areas that they just are completely off limits, and I don't completely understand why. There's got to be something going on with Antarctica that they just don't want the rest of us to know about.
I think that honestly, I think that there's something under that ice. I believe there's an entrance to something under that ice, or and I think a lot of answers to a lot of things that a lot of people have would be answered, or
Well,
could be answered.
there's that story that keeps floating around about the Russian expedition that bored through the ice into a lake and encountered this bizarre octopus-like creature. And the story
Yep.
keeps
Organism
rolling around.
X, I think was what it was called, or something like that.
Yeah, organism X or organism. I'll Google it real quick.
Organism something or another.
Organism 46B.
We were right on the organism part.
Supposedly lived in Lake Vostok, beneath 2 miles of ice. Organism 46B is allegedly an enormous 33 feet long, 10 meters, 14 tentacled squid-like creature which lived in Lake Vostok, a subglacial lake located under 2 miles of ice beneath Vostok Station in Antarctica. The animal could release a toxin into the water to immobilize its prey from a distance of up to 150 feet, displayed an astonishing degree of shape-shifting. Its limbs were animate and aggressive even after amputation, and it showed a considerable degree of both hostility and intelligence.
Was that what you based them things off of in Nightmare Hunter?
Kind of, yeah.
Because you started reading that, and I was like,
You mean in Heart of Iron, not Nightmare Hunter.
no. I'm talking about, go back to Nightmare Hunter when they were underground.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because remember, they were swimming through the water and they started getting numb because they swam through whatever that was.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure Heart of Iron you pulled from that too, but you first mentioned it in Nightmare Hunter.
They believe that the creature they call 46B, that the whole story may have been a hoax. However, the story keeps cropping back up. It's one of those stories that just doesn't seem to want to die. It was believed that Vladimir Putin was wanting to weaponize the creature. Vostok Station was established by the Russians in 1957 and was discovered to have been on top of a massive underwater lake. In 1974, they discovered that, and they subsequently named it Lake Vostok after the station. After 30 years of ice core drilling, the research team finally breached through to the lake on the 5th of February 2012. The only encounter must have occurred sometime between then and the 30th of November 2016, when the story broke, although exact dates so far have proven impossible to track down. Dr. Anton Padalka claims to have been part of the first scientific expedition to explore the lake. We encountered organism 46B on our first day. It disabled our radio, which we later learned to our alarm was intentional. It is also able to paralyze prey from a distance of up to 150 feet by releasing its venom into the water. Tragically, my colleague and lifelong friend was killed this way. Later, while diving in the lake, the group was attacked, the creature releasing its venom into the water, which took hold of one of them, then killing and eating him. As Padalka stated, he tread water wearing a blissful smile as the organism approached him. We watched helplessly as it used its arms to tear off his head and then pop the remains in his mouth, as if it had hypnotized him telepathically. Still later, 46B stalked the group, displaying its shape-shifting ability. It had shaped itself into the form of a human diver. We thought it was one of my colleagues swimming toward us in scuba gear. By the time the closest scientist had realized what it was, it grabbed him and tore him to bits. Escaping the creature, a member of the team managed to lop off one of 46B's tentacles, although later the limb attacked the group again. Later that night, it slid across the ice bank and strangled her, stated Padalka. After finally trapping the creature in a tank, the surviving members of the team brought it to the surface, where they claimed Russian officials seized the beast and told the international press that nothing had been found.
Chris says it's like the damn thing.
Yeah, no kidding. Bizzle says, don't forget several major leaders took tours under the ice down there, including presidential candidate right before the election. I'm not shocked. Northwest Tracker says an ancient Greek myth describes critters like 46B and can make itself look human in shape by the way it holds its tentacles. Alexander the Great describes them in his diary when using diving bells. I didn't know Alexander the Great used diving bells. That's interesting.
Never heard of that.
So if that's in the lake underneath the ice, was it there already? Was it there when there was no ice?
Probably so. I mean, the Kraken had to come from somewhere.
Very true.
That sounds an awful lot like a Kraken to me.
Well, except for the Kraken, there was never stories of the Kraken shape shifting or paralyzing people. It just attacked ships and sank them.
I mean, different stories about different things from different areas. I mean,
Big Bird says, didn't Obama go to Antarctica also? I don't know. That one I'm not sure about. Phil Kroll says, not so ancient maps show Antarctica without ice in the 1500s. Yeah, the Piri Reis or whatever, however you pronounce it, map is supposedly dated to the 8th century and shows it without ice. .3D says different Kraken for different folk.
yeah, exactly. Just like, different Sasquatch types.
Just Ryan's got a good point. Organism 46B. Wow. So what is organism 46A? What are the other 45?
Yeah, that is something. Why is it 46B?
That means they cataloged other animals that they just referred to as organism 1, organism 2, maybe if that's 46B, maybe they found more than one type of that creature, and organism 46A may not have been aggressive or was something similar but not quite like it.
Or maybe it didn't shapeshift like the other one did.
Maybe. Or maybe they only observed it and thought it was a different animal. Northwest Native Tracker's talking about Alexander the Great and the diving bell. I'm going to have to see if I can find that, man. If you've got links to any of that, could you send those to me? Because I would like to read up on that. Just Ryan says organism 46A must have been a lot scarier creature. Chris Burkhart says if there's fresh water, there's life. Absolutely true. So, when we talk about the Lake Vostok monster or organism 46B, whatever you want to call it, what do you guys think? Do you think the story's real, or do you think it was a hoax? Because the Russians, seizing something like that and claiming they didn't find anything, that's right in line with what our government would do. They would say, "Oh no, we didn't find anything," and then attempt to weaponize it. But if that thing was 10 meters long, 30 plus feet long, must have been a hell of a tank they put that thing in.
Yeah. I mean, were they just carrying tanks around that big on the off chance that they would come across something that big? I mean,
well, if they'd cataloged at least 45 other organisms, maybe their whole plan was to find new things.
I mean,
it took them 30 years to dig through that much ice.
But are you going, if you're digging through 2 miles of ice and you find a lake, are you going down there expecting to find a 33-foot squid? Probably not. So you're probably not going to have that on hand. They had to call in for the special equipment to build the tank or have it flown in, which more than likely is what keyed off the Russian government. So, I mean, there's elements of it that look like it could be hoaxed, but there's also elements of it that make it sound like maybe it wasn't.
Do you want to hear something funny?
Sure.
I just went to Google Maps and put in Lake Vostok, Antarctica,
Yeah.
and it will show me a pin that says Lake Vostok, but everything else is whited out.
Hmm.
You cannot view it.
Also, check
Google Maps goes crazy when you try to get the satellite view of it.
the Googles don't like that. Is what you're saying?
The Googles don't like it. It will not let me view Lake Vostok.
Check the co-host chat. I just sent you something in that. Just FYI.
Cool. All right, thanks, man.
Yep.
Go figure. Anyway,
Thought you'd find that interesting.
yeah. But the to the surprise of nobody, when you try to view the satellite view of Lake Vostok, it just whites it out. It says, "Oh hell, here I'll share it. You can see my screen." It will show exactly what I'm trying to find. It says Lake Vostok right in the middle of it, but the rest of it's whited out. And when I try to get the satellite view, watch it. It just goes nuts.
The Googles ain't having none of that.
The Googles is not interested in all in letting me view Lake Vostok. And that is all it will give me. And if I click on terrain, it just goes back to just whited it out. I can't get any view of the map of Lake Vostok. I can try zooming out, but when I've got Lake Vostok on here at all, the whole map stays completely white. Oh, there we go.
Maybe that's why it's black.
If I zoom out that far, it'll show me terrain features. But if I zoom in on Lake Vostok, there's Concordia Station. If I zoom in on Lake Vostok, it gives me absolutely nothing. That whole area is completely whited out. Now, granted, it is Antarctica, but the satellite view should show something.
Yeah, it's
You know,
still
windswept fields, rocks.
Yeah, you should still. I mean, it still should show it on a topo map. You should still see the topography, because there are mountains and see, like look right there on the outskirts.
Yeah, let's look right there.
It.
I can still see terrain features there, but over Lake Vostok, nothing. There's Davis Station, which I believe is in the water.
It's like they've just got MS Paint and painted white over
that
whole area.
Entire sections are completely erased. Now let's go right up here to Australia and zoom in on the same thing. Look what happens when we zoom in on that. I go to layers. I can go to satellite. I can see towns, water, lakes, the whole spiel. But I go back over here to Antarctica, to Lake Vostok, and it disappears. Copyright 2024 Google.
The Googles.
Weird. Huh.
Things that make you go,
Yeah. But the one I'm still kind of just scratching my head is the eye of the Sahara. That does not look like it could possibly be a natural formation. Not in any way, shape, or form. I'm going to bring that up again. And supposedly there's what they call the reshat structure. Looks like it's ruins of something, but it just says structure, so it doesn't say what it is. Just look at that. I don't believe that was done by just wind erosion. Not unless the wind was going in a complete circle like a giant tornado for hundreds, if not thousands of years.
Yeah, well, I mean, if it just been, let's just say it was, wind gusts. I mean, nothing's trailed off. I mean, it's like you said, it's perfectly concentric.
It's
There's
not a perfect circle, but it's too much of one to ignore.
Yeah, but there's no trail off of, like if, what do you call those? Just little cyclones that just happen.
Yeah, little tailings.
Yeah, you'd have a start and an exit point where you'd see just like a footprint, where everything starts and stops.
You have all these dry riverbeds where this place was once, very well watered, very, very well irrigated. You can see all these old riverbeds. And then whatever is right there is also circular. Simsiat Dome. But look at that.
It's definitely weird.
Yeah. And it doesn't match. If that's one extremely localized phenomenon. If the wind did that and didn't do it anywhere else in that area.
Yeah, and that's a tell right there in itself, in my opinion, is if that was a naturally occurring phenomenon, then you would see it in more than just that one spot.
Right. The Eye of the Sahara is in modern day Mauritania. And I don't know about you, dude, but that matches the description of what Plato gave of Atlantis. If there was a city, then it's built on rings. I have never seen more perfect rings like that on any map. And that's what it looks like. I mean, some of these ridges are much higher than the moats around them.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. Northwest says no, but no pyramids. The pyramids aren't far from there. That is North Africa. But Philip Coyle says you can also see the trails of water erosion flowing to the Atlantic Ocean from the ancient Sahara. Yeah. And when we scroll out, you can see lots of like old riverbeds and, markers of where water has done a lot of damage. I mean, look at this. That's all like old riverbeds and things in the basalt.
Well, and depending on those rivers, that might would have been, pretty good for a trade route too.
Yeah.
I mean, because that's not that far technically off the coast. And if the rivers are big enough and traversable, that could have been a big, and if those are rivers that go all the way around it, like you said, perfect. You sail in one side, come in, dock, do your business, keep on sailing out, and sail right out the other side.
Well, Death Valley was once a gigantic inland sea. They found whale bones in Death Valley.
Yeah.
Phil Coyle says just east of the eye is also a very long and straight structure looking like an ancient dam just east of it. So it would be right in here. I don't see the dam unless it's this. Chris Burkhardt says, gear up, big road trip. That would be awesome.
Big road trip. Win the lottery style road trip.
Yeah, no kidding. But I don't know. If I was an archaeologist and I was looking for Atlantis, I think I would try to get permission to dig here. because somebody in the chat earlier said that there were Atlantean artifacts, including pottery, found on the east coast of Africa. So that, to me, that would lend credence to that, because the Azores are off the west coast of Africa. Steve Patton says, DA, there's a theory which during the last ice age, when the oceans were much, much lower, there was a land mass between North America and Europe. That's possibly where Atlantis was. Yeah, we were talking about that earlier. And we showed the map. That land mass is right here. And it looks almost like the head of a giant freaking steer, like a Texas Longhorn. This whole area around the Azores would have been above water. And again, around that, we're finding another circular area. It's not as well defined as the Eye of the Sahara, but it's also been at the bottom of the ocean for, a couple thousand years, maybe longer. But when you look at that, it kind of really catches your eye. I mean, this whole area right there looks like a big circle with remnants of what could be, different tiers within it. Is it perfect? No. Is it intriguing? Yes. But it's going to be a lot easier to do an archaeological dig in the Eye of the Sahara than it is going to be here off the coast of the Azores.
I'm right there with you, Justin. Justin Oldfart said, biggest downfall is having to merge your ship through the roundabouts. I hate roundabouts.
I do too. I'm right there with you. I don't know, man. There's just something about this that just really, really sticks with me. Anyway, what do you guys think? Hey, AD, you made it home? Good. Glad you made it home, buddy. Hey, bud, thanks again today for helping me out today. Steve Penn says, what if Atlantis was more than just one place? That's exactly what we're saying. Mm-hmm. That it maybe the civilization, partially existed off the Azores, also here in the Eye of the Sahara, and explains the civilizations from the Piri Reis, or Piri Reis, or how, I don't know how it's pronounced, but Piri Reis, whatever it's pronounced. I'm a hillbilly.
Piri Reis. That's what we've been doing.
Piri Reis. That's what I'm used to saying. That's probably what I'll stick with, but it may not be right, but I ain't right. 3D says he can see Vostok Station on Google Earth. Dude, it won't let me. Philip Croy says dam structure at latitude 21 point along the very edge of the eastern eye. So along the eastern eye, this would be the eastern side of the eye. Well, this definitely looks like water erosion. I think I see what he means about the dam structure. I think it's this. It looks like it very well could have been. I just think it's 3D. I would love to check that out. I'm not getting it to show me.
Let's see if I can see what it does for me. He said he was on Google Earth, right?
Google. I went to Google Maps.
I think he said he was on Google Earth.
Let me try Google Earth then. It's loading.
The Google's Earth.
Oh. Huh. I'm still not getting much, even on Google Earth.
Oh well. Shut up.
I'll play with that. I'll play
The
with that
Googles
more.
are talking to me.
It was talking to you.
I think the Googles was watching what I was doing. It said I was almost there.
Yeah, there's. I'm definitely wanting to play with this more. Huh. Yeah, I found the dam structure. I found what I think that was. That was I found that in Africa near the eye of the Sahara.
That damn structure.
I clearly don't know how to use Google Earth. I'm going to be trying to figure that one out.
That's the Google Earths.
Yeah.
It's the Googles if you're using Google. It's the Google Earths if you're using Google Earth. We gotta get our terminology right.
Yep. Anyway, kind of drag ourselves back onto topic. I think there's just too much there to ignore. Too many connections. Thanks, 3D. I'll check it here in a bit.
Sonia said, Robin asked if we're concerned looking into this that we could get hurt.
Not really.
Yeah,
I mean, if we were able to get satellite images of classified material, yeah, but we're looking at stuff that only anybody can find.
Yeah, the Googles ain't giving us nothing that ain't giving nobody else. So
right. 3D says maybe you got to be on Google Chrome. Hey, you know what we haven't done tonight? I still have 5 more guest memberships to give away.
Yeah, we forgot to do that. The other 5 the other night.
So, how about we give away 5 memberships? What do y'all think of that?
I say let's do it.
Let me get to the right page. And how about we do that? Let me see here. Okay. Let's give away 5 memberships. Y'all ready? Here we go. Okay. We gave away 5. Pure Blood Prophet got 1. Let There Be Monsters with Ryan Tremblay got 1. Dynamo Hum got 1. Flat Rock got 1. And Neil Decker got the other one. Congratulations, everybody.
Congratulations.
Yeah, I will play around more with Google Earth at a later date. But I think we're just, there's too much here that just seems more than a coincidence.
Yeah, and like I said, I think
Don's got a good comment.
What was that?
He says, could the government use TV shows to soft release info? So it could be the show Stargate was used. They said on there that our ancient race of humans has an outpost in Antarctica. It wouldn't surprise me, dude. It really wouldn't. Now, what were you going to say, Robbie?
Oh, I think when we kind of first started talking about this, it was more or less like Well, what if, and I don't think we really, I don't think I'm not going to say we didn't believe it or didn't believe it was possible, but I don't think either one of us thought that it would unfold like it has.
Right. I mean, the more we dig, the more connections we seem to find. Big Bird says Atlantis's fleet may be preserved in the docks. It could be. I mean, maybe that's why they forbid, exploration of Antarctica. Maybe they know what's down there and just don't want it to get out. Northwest's digging is the key, but we're not allowed to dig in Antarctica.
Yeah.
There's no expeditions allowed that aren't, through a government agency. And even then it's limited. You can go to places like McMurdo and other things like that, or even take Antarctic cruises where you can get up close, but you're not allowed to explore it. Makes me wonder what they found there to keep it off limits.
Like I said, I think a lot of answers will be, or a lot of questions will be answered.
Yeah, if we had access to the Library of Alexandria's information, how many bits of human history, how many gaps could we fill in? How many mysteries could we solve that we've only been speculating on for hundreds of years?
Oh, a lot.
Don Donaldson says they also had Atlantis being a starship in space. Yeah. I wonder how much truth is in some of these things like that. And it would make perfect sense that certain information would be disseminated that way, because then if people don't believe it, they can say, oh, it's science fiction. But other people look at it and go, okay, what are they trying to tell us here?
Check the co-host chat. Rodney just sent me a picture off a map.
What's that of?
Antarctica. That's what he said anyway.
It certainly looks like it. Let me open that image up, see if I can blow it up some. That's Concordia Station, which is not far from Lake Vostok. It's not quite Lake Vostok, but it's in the neighborhood, so to speak. So this is the actual structures at Concordia Station. You can't, it's kind of hard to read that, but I saw Concordia Station on the map not far from Lake Vostok. So there's a number of buildings at Concordia Station. I wonder if it's still in use.
Maybe so.
I think I shall consult the Googles.
Don't they have expeditions or things like that every so many years to go out there? Still,
they have to for some of these remote facilities, but I don't know. What kind of expeditions they take out there. Okay, Concordia Research Station, which opened in 2005, is a French and Italian research facility that was built 3,233 meters above sea level at a location called Dome C on the Antarctic Plateau in Antarctica. It's 1,100 kilometers inland from the French research station at Dumont d'Urville, 1,100 kilometers inland from Australia's Casey Station, and 1,200 kilometers inland from the Italian Zucchelli Station at Terra Nova Bay. It's only 350 miles away from Vostok Station.
I mean, that's not far. I mean, I guess it is, but
I guess Concordia is still in operation because it said it went operational in 2005 and doesn't say anything about it being closed down. It said Dome Sea is situated on top of the Antarctic plateau. No animals or plants live at a distance of more than a few tens of kilometers from the Southern Ocean. However, southern polar skuas have been spotted overflying the station 1,200 kilometers away from their nearest food sources. It's believed that these birds have learned to cross the continent instead of circumnavigating it. Apparently, it is still being used. Interesting. Well, then, if they're still using it, it's pretty believable that the Russians would still be using Vostok.
yeah. And the thing is, I guess they really don't have to. It's not anything that really has to be reported because no, I mean, there's no official. As long as there's nothing, no country's flag flown over Antarctica, they can pretty much, the countries that are in accordance with that, whatever that agreement is, can go in there and study and do whatever they want, right? Isn't that how that works?
Mm-hmm. Julie Welchek says, do you think a lot of the stuff from the Alexandria Library is in the Vatican archives? I think so, because at the time that the Library of Alexandria burned, Mark Antony's fleet was in harbor. So the Romans were big about collecting, knowledge everywhere they went. And if they're behind the burning of the library, it would not surprise me that they took what they wanted and torched the rest, or took everything and torched it to cover their tracks.
Yeah.
Is that second one Lake Vostok? Because it's not the same one.
Near Zuccelli Station.
Okay, that's the Italian Zuccelli Station. I wonder why we can't get images of Vostok. That's weird to me. If the other ones are showing up on Google Earth, why are we still not able to get images of Vostok?
Yeah, that's kind of weird. Because I mean, to me, that says that there's something to hide at Lake Vostok. That,
to me, that almost really kind of lends credence to the organism 46B story. Maybe it is a hoax, but maybe they circulated rumors of it being a hoax to try to discredit the story. They said Did the same thing with Bigfoot. They did the same thing with Dogman. They tried to say, well, all these hoaxed videos, that proves it's not real. But like you were saying, when it comes to Bigfoot, which is harder to believe, that people there's a ape running, a giant North American ape running around out there, or that centuries of a worldwide conspiracy to hoax that exists. Cryptid Vostok is Vostok. Vostok. Robert D, there's a lot of places that are whited out on the map. Go to Nevada and try to look at the Groom Lake facility on Google Earth, or Fort Huachuca, Arizona, home of Army intelligence. Try to look at that on Google Maps, or most military bases. To be honest, they're either blurred out completely or parts of them are obscured. Sonia, you're right. Vostok, Vostok. Yeah, there are places all over the world that Google Maps will not show you. Now it might just be a small area, or it might be a whole section of the map. But try looking up, Area 51, and you will find the whole section's blurred out. Well, as they say, very interesting.
Very interesting.
I think it is definitely food for thought.
Yeah, like I said, I think when we first started down this little rabbit hole, whatever, last year before, whenever we started it was kind of one of them fun theories. Oh, well, let's, this is possible. And now it's just like, dang, this just makes sense. It's just, I mean, it's almost like the more we tried to look into it to make sure it was almost kind of like trying to look into it far enough to see that it didn't make sense. It made it make more sense.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. It's like looking at everything to say, okay, well, are we just, is this just a fun theory, or is there something to this? And then when you found the thing about the Piri Reis map with the Bigfoot and Dogman creatures in the margin and all that kind of stuff, and we were up like, and then I read that book, started telling you about that book, and it having pretty much the same stuff that we were talking about mentioned in the book, and it's just, I don't know, it's just kind of it's a cool feeling.
And I think there's just enough connections to make it plausible.
Well, yeah, and that's really all we got to do is make it plausible. We don't have to prove it. We just have to prove that we've got a theory that's plausible enough to, because we're not the big time scientists out there getting paid the big bucks to solve all these things. We're just like, we're just a couple of rednecks out here kicking theories around. So for us to get as close as we are to something that plausible, I think we've done pretty good.
I think we've certainly, given ourselves enough to keep us awake thinking about it, and maybe have folks, digging in and looking for their own questions, because, looking for their own answers is what I meant. But at the end of the day, that's really all we're trying to do. We're trying to make, enough of a case where you want to know more. And folks, do your own research, check your own sources. Again, Robbie and I don't claim to be any kind of expert on any of these subjects. We're just a couple of hillbillies that are giving our opinions on this stuff. And I may not be the brightest bulb in the pack, but even I'm seeing connections here.
Yeah, and I mean,
Richie says, "Hey, what do you want to know about Area 51? I used to work there. I had a buddy who was a guard there, so I've heard quite a bit." Steve sent me something in Messenger. Let me find it, Steve. Just a second. Oh, let me set this up so I can share this. This is pretty interesting. Thanks, Steve. I'll bring this up in just a second. This is, again, so when you
see what Rodney said? Look at what Rodney said up there. He said he just typed in Russia Vostok station, and cryptid in Russian Vostok station. It kicked him out.
Huh. Holy crap! Well, it ain't just me then. Okay, Steve Patton just sent me this, and it says, I'll read it. You guys can read it. You read along with me, but It says archaeologists have made a sensational discovery beneath the Baltic Sea, a 3,000-foot long stone wall that could upend our understanding of Europe's prehistoric past. Dubbed the Blinker Wall, this extensive structure is submerged at roughly 70 feet underwater in Germany's Bay of Mecklenburg near Rerik, as reported by PNAS. A 3,000-foot long stone wall that predated, and here we go, right back to the whole thing with Atlantis. The ocean's levels being shallower during the last ice age. That would have been well above water. If the Azores are under 400 feet of water and that whole section was above water, that's fascinating. Could that have been part of that old civilization?
Well, I mean, it's just like you talked about the Bimini Road, and I mean,
the Bimini Road goes that direction.
That's what I'm saying. I mean,
it leaves the island of Bimini and heads northeast.
Like I said, we were spitballing and having a fun theory at first, but the further we go, the more I think there's just something to what we've been talking about.
Some craziness. Some absolute freaking craziness. I think that's absolutely mind-blowingly wild that it just kicked Rodney out. Kevin Bode, he says also Area 52 and 53 that nobody talks about because most people don't know about them. They moved so much stuff out of the Groom Lake facility. It wouldn't surprise me if you're able to see it on Google Earth because of all the alien highway and everything that goes by there. So many people are focused, so laser focused on Area 50, 51. The Air Force is like, fine, look at this. Look at the bright, pretty light. Don't pay any attention to what we're doing over here in these caves.
And that's probably what Area 51 has become.
Yeah.
It's become the showpiece.
Yeah, to get people to watch it.
When I worked at the fire department, we had 3 stations. You had Station 1, Station 2, and Station 3. Station 1 and Station 3 were the old stations. Station 2 was our brand new station. We called it the showpiece. Everybody went, when there was meetings or when somebody wanted to show something at the fire department, that's where they went. You wanted to be at Station 1 or Station 3 because nobody ever went to 1 or 3. Everybody went to Station 2. So nobody wanted to be stationed there because you couldn't just sit around and, be yourself. You had to always be in your regular uniform. You had to always be doing something. You couldn't sit and watch TV because that's the one that everybody came by. Same thing, same principle. Everybody's looking at Area 51. They're not looking at 52 and 53 because those are either not known about or not talked about.
Well, in Ragnarok Rising, toward the end of the series, I mentioned an underground facility under Fort Leonard Wood. And I was told by somebody I know that works up there that construction has begun on an underground facility at Fort Leonard Wood. Weird. And he doesn't know what it's for. They're not saying. $3D said he sent me. Let me see if I can get that. He sent me some images. Vostok. Let me pull those up. Okay, let me save this image and bring it up. All right. This is supposedly Vostok Station. If it really let him get an image. This is supposedly a zoomed in of Vostok. Let's see what kind of details we can make out. This is Vostok Station. if they bored a hole deep enough to get to Lake Vostok and bring something that size out, you'd think it'd either be visible or they built the building over it.
Well, it almost looks like it sunk in certain places. Like maybe there could be something underneath that.
This is interesting. This looks like a building. It would definitely be big enough to hide something like that. Oh, there's a round hole right there.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Huh. Curiouser and curiouser. Very interesting. Vostok Station is a Russian research station in inland Princess Elizabeth Land, Antarctica. Founded by the Soviet Union in 1957, the station lies at the southern pole of cold, with the lowest reliably measured natural temperatures on Earth of minus 89.2 degrees Celsius. Research includes ice core drilling and magnetometry.
Magnetometry. Why does that sound familiar? What is that?
Study of the Earth's magnetic properties, I believe.
Okay, that was in that book series that I was talking about.
Look at the elevation of that. 11,444 feet above sea level. Is it not impressive that ice can build up that high above sea level?
Very.
That's over 2 miles of ice. Yeah, that is just over 2 miles of ice.
Yeah, that's a lot of ice.
That is a hell of a lot of ice. This round building here makes me wonder what that is. I mean, what purpose would that serve? If it's a radar dome, you think it would be like up on one of these towers.
Maybe that's got something to do with the magnetometer.
Maybe.
If that's the right way to phrase that.
Yeah, I think that is correct. And even in this picture, you can see what looks to be recent tire tracks. See them?
Yep. Or at least something circle around it.
Yep. Very interesting. I wish we could get when you talk about what's the word where your brain makes images, shapes out of nothing?
Pareidolia.
Pareidolia. Yeah, that almost looks like a face when you zoom in on it, but it's obviously pareidolia.
Looks like an elf with a big pointy hat on and an open mouth.
Great example of pareidolia.
Yep.
So, I guess it is possible to get an image of Vostok Station, but it doesn't seem like they're real excited to let you try.
Hey, and you know what else is amazing about this topic?
What's that?
We are 2 hours and 4 minutes in, and we've stayed on topic the entire 2 hours.
Holy crap. Somebody write this one down. December 7th, 2024. They stayed on topic.
For 2 hours and 4 minutes.
Steve, yeah, I think those are vehicle tracks. That's what they look like to me. Some sort of vehicle. Canton, Dustin, he says, for those who, like me, may not be as familiar with metric, Yeah, I was wondering that myself. Minus 89.2 degrees Celsius is the equivalent of negative 128.56 degrees Fahrenheit.
That's a little chilly.
Holy crap. That'll kill you. That'll kill you fast.
That's a little chilly.
Whew. Rodney says Vostok is the largest of Antarctica's 675 known subglacial lakes. Lake Vostok is located at the southern pole of cold beneath Russia's Vostok station.
What? Oh, that's funny.
You know, dude, I want to dig some more into this and maybe do a part 2 to this.
I thought that I love this topic. This is just such an easy topic to talk about, and it seems like every time we have a show on it, we pull up something else that just strengthens that web.
I forgot to show you guys the other zoomed out, the other image of Vostok. I forgot it. He sent me two. Let me pull that up. This is Vostok Station, but it's zoomed out. So this was the same image you saw earlier, only it's a little farther out. You can't see as much details, but I think you do see some interesting. I mean,
Kevin wants to know what episode number this is. I guess for the archives.
I think this is 310. This is interesting right here. What is that? It almost looks like power lines. It's straight lines. Two of them.
What are those little divots beside in each one of them?
Yeah, no kidding. What? Oh, I bet that's an airstrip. They've got to get supplies.
Yep.
I bet that's their airstrip.
Yes, Sonia, you could definitely complain about negative 128 degrees. I think if you didn't complain about, well, you probably wouldn't have time to complain about it. Key that quick.
Hey, I would say if you were not wearing Arctic survival gear, it'd probably kill you in minutes.
Oh yeah, if even.
This is just really interesting because it does seem to kind of lend credence to that story. I mean, it looks like there was a couple places that looked like it could have been that borehole they were talking about. In particular,
I think
this
maybe
spot
that big
here.
circle that you were talking about. Yeah.
I don't know. What do y'all think?
Well, I think like I said, I was talking to Rodney about coming on the show. He likes this topic too, I believe. Maybe that'd be the part 2 is let Rodney do some research on that, and we get him on here. What do you think, Rodney? Give you some time to do some research on it and have a part 2 on this.
Yeah, I think we'll definitely plan a part 2 on this, probably in the near future.
Yeah,
maybe not the next show we do, but definitely in the near future.
Well, the next show we do is going to be reading. So
that's true. Okay, hold on a second. This is a close-up of the structure in the eye of the Sahara, what they call the Reshat structure.
Rodney said that sounds good to him, though.
Okay. Oh, dude. The Google Earth image I showed before, the Google Earth, the Google Maps one that I said this one looks too much like it could be Antarctica, Atlantis to ignore. Wait till you freaking see this. Holy crap. This is a much better image than we had before. If you don't think this was part of a city, I don't know what to tell you. Those are walls. Those are man-made.
I'm gonna look at it on my phone. It ain't popping up on the. Huh. It was kind of small on my phone, but it definitely that looks just like what we looked at in the desert. But it looks like a lower down view where you can actually see the differences in the sizes of the or the sizes of the what do you call them, the different levels.
Mm-hmm. Concentric rings.
Yeah.
It will not let me grab this image so I can blow it up. What the heck? But still, that's a pretty good view of that. That is clearly man-made. Okay, I'm even more convinced now than I was that this has got to have something to do with Atlantis. What else could it be? Because obviously, from the look of it, nobody's lived there in a very long time.
Like I said, the deeper we dig.
Okay, okay. I'm kind of mind blown about that. Maz says Admiral Byrd said on TV in the 50s that Antarctica had temperate lands of the size of the U.S. that weren't frozen. Again, leading credence to the Piri Reis map.
Yeah. Well, the U.S. Navy's already proved that that's Antarctica with the sonar soundings and scans.
Justin Oldfart says, looks like the saucer section of the NC's 1701D Enterprise.
Yeah.
Does kind of. I'm telling you, dude. My mind is officially blown from that image. That is obviously man-made. That's not erosion. That was built by the hands of people. And it's, from the look of it, it's got to be centuries old. I mean, from the look of the map, it looks like the nearest actual inhabited settlement is, a good long way away. And if that's out in the desert with no water nearby, ain't nobody living there.
That's true.
So I don't think that's been inhabited for, well, I'd say for a damn good long time. And if you ask me, I think that is definitely on the category list of either being Atlantis or Atlantean.
Well, like we said, I mean, I think I don't think there was just the one city. Well, there was the main city, obviously.
Yeah, if it was a civilization, it had to have multiple cities.
Yeah. But also, there was people that branched out and went out to make other colonies and things like that. So, and if you come from this, you're going to build the way that you were taught, and and you might add a few things here and there, but it's going to look a lot like that. So, like you said, lending credence.
I'm blown. My mind is blown on that one. Yeah, we have definitely got to do another deep dive on this one. Get Rodney on, and hopefully we'll have Doc and Steve jump in on this too, because I'd love to get their opinions on that. Yeah, this is a rabbit hole that we've only begun to scratch the surface of.
Yeah, and this is about the third show we've done on it.
And I truly do think there's a connection between Atlantis, Antarctica, and the Hollow Earth. And again, I don't think the Hollow Earth is the entire Earth is hollow. I think that because of the thickness of the Earth's mantle, the Earth's crust, I think that there are vast pockets that are their own ecosystems down there, much like the one they found in Vietnam. Yeah, it had access to the surface, but many of them, well, they wouldn't have to, especially if they've got bioluminescence and plants that are capable of creating their own oxygen.
Yep.
Little Patty says, with those walls, makes you wonder if they were trying to keep something out or in.
Or both.
Well, y'all, I will say my mind is officially blown tonight. When I look at that image of the Eye of the Sahara, I can't explain it any other way. That was a city. That was a city, and not a small one from the look of it. If it's big enough to be seen from orbit, it damn sure ain't a small one. No. It ain't like Podunk, Missouri, where I was born. You ain't gonna see Lebanon, Missouri from orbit. You might see a little speck of light at night, but you ain't gonna see Lebanon, Missouri from orbit. That can be seen from orbit. So it's big. Dude, I don't know what else to say, man. I'm just absolutely blown away by this. Kevin Boat says, I bet $1 the DA doesn't sleep tonight due to thinking. You're probably right. I'm thinking of two things, Kevin. One, what if that really was Atlantis? And two, how do I put this in a book?
Oh, I'm sure you'll find a way.
I'm sure it'll come to me. Well, boys and girls, I think we're going to start winding things down tonight. Hey, Larry Sharp just was a member for 4 months, Nightmare Hunter. Thank you, dude. Appreciate you, brother. But we're going to start winding things down, and we're going to save the next rock layer that we're about to break through for when we've got Rodney and hopefully Doc and Steve on the show as well. Rodney, let me know when you think you'd be ready, because I'm going to pull more on this as well. And there's something else that I want to also to bring up the next time we talk about this. I didn't get a chance to really look up a lot about it tonight. But if you guys want to do a little of your own search, Jay Freiberg sent this to me. If you guys want to do a little bit of your own research on this, you guys can check it out. And that way you guys got comments and questions you can throw at us. But it's called the Johannes Schoner Globe. There was a German scientist named Johannes Schoner who made a globe that looks very different than the one we're used to. And I'm going to post that in the chat so you guys can see how that is spelled. Again, it's called the Johannes Schoner Globe. And you look at it and it bears similarities, but a lot of differences in how we view our world today. Makes me wonder. So I didn't really have time to dig deep into this globe. But it's something I want to do for the next show as well, because not only we're going to continue to talk about the Piri Reis map, Piri Reis, or I don't know, Piri Reis. I'm going to keep saying Piri Reis. I know it's wrong, but I can't get myself to say it the right way if there is a right way. But the Piri Reis map, I know there's connections with that. We're going to talk more about the Schoner Globe and see what kind of avenues that we can run down with Rodney and Doc and Steve. Definitely be watching for this next one. It's going to be coming up soon. We might do something different on Wednesday, and then what do you guys think? Do part 2 of this one next Saturday?
That's fine with me.
Okay, that'll give us a week to do some deep diving. Wednesday we'll do something unrelated, and then the next Saturday we'll do part 2 of this. If Rodney, is that good with you, buddy? Dr. 45 said, what was the name of that place? What place? Which place? Are you talking about the Eye of the Sahara or the Lake Vostok area? I'm not sure which one you're wanting to know that about. Phil Coles is going to dig up the map of Plato's description. He described it as being a series of concentric rings connected by canals. I've read his description. I haven't seen an actual map on it, but if you want to send me, if you can find anything, any notes on it or drawings of it, send them to me at DARoberts@DARoberts.net. Definitely appreciate anything you want to send my way on that. I didn't see if Rodney said anything.
He hadn't yet. I've been watching.
Rodney, you good for next Saturday?
Been texting him just to make sure he.
All right, then. But looks like all roads lead to Atlantis.
Or from it.
Or from it, yeah. The old saying used to be all roads lead to Rome, but I think some of those roads are older than Rome. Ryan, thank you. Wyatt, thanks, brother. Yeah, I think we've just really kind of, we're going to go a little deeper. There's another rock layer. I think we've reached a good stopping point. We're just over 2 hours, but I think there's a lot more to talk about this. And I'm also going to pull more research on organism 46B, and because to me, I don't know, I want to believe this story. I know there's suggestions that it's a hoax, but something about it just kind of, especially since the story doesn't seem to die. It just keeps coming back. Even when people dismiss it, then it just pops back up. So I'm going to look for more stuff on organism 46B. We'll also look at for more connections and other possible locations, because Lemuria, we didn't even talk about Lemuria, and that's another supposedly lost civilization somewhere out in the ocean. Now, I believe Lemuria, if I remember correctly, was in the Pacific, and Atlantis was in the Atlantic. And we didn't even touch Lemuria yet. So 3D, that came out after The Thing. The original version of The Thing came out, I think the original version was in the 50s.
1951.
1951. The original version of The Thing dates back. And then the Kurt Russell version was in the 80s. And then they redid another modern version of it, which I haven't seen. But that story does predate the Lake Vostok monster. The Lake Vostok monster story came out, but somewhere between 2012 and 2016 when it first started appearing. But it does have elements of The Thing, and it's also, I think, mainly the biggest elements is it's a possible alien and origin creature, and it happened, in an Arctic or Antarctic research facility. So I think Rodney said, okay.
Yep.
Are you answering? Is he answering us?
Yeah.
Just an old fart says, you touch on Lemuria and Wu will take you to Mount Shasta. Well, we'll see where it takes us. I mean, like I said, we don't rule anything out. We're just trying to find the most logical explanations. And then sometimes there just isn't one. If we've known about the eye of the Sahara for all this time, how come nobody else has made the Atlantis connection? Because to me, it's just glaring. It is just right there, staring you in the face. How could you not look at that and think this is an ancient civilization? This was significant. It's big enough to be seen from orbit. It is definitely significant. Just no fort says money. Yeah. People might have been told for a long time, and it's only been in the last, decade or so where we've really had access to satellite imagery. When I was in the Army, satellite imagery was spy satellites that the government only had access to, and that was a long time ago. But even as recently as the late 90s, when we were just first starting to get to use GPS technology. Well, civilians were getting to use GPS technology, but we still didn't get satellite imagery. We got some stuff from news channels when they talk about the weather, but it was nowhere near detailed to see individual people on a street. But the technology has improved greatly over the years, and we're seeing more and more. So maybe, just maybe, somebody's going to take a closer look at this and think, you know what, this is a great place for an archaeological dig. Steve says, I'm sure they probably were, but probably told to keep it quiet. Could be right. Bill Big Bird says Roger Spur has talked about Atlantis for years, but no one believed him till now. I believed Atlantis was a real place for a long time. I don't think it was just some casual story that Plato happened to bring up. I think it was a real place, and I think, we're coming much closer to that mystery, and I'm really proud that maybe we might not have cracked anything wide open, but we gave a lot of people some food for thought. And at the end of the day, that's the best we can hope for, because we're not fully funded government research teams. We're not going to be able to go out to these locations and do our own research at those locations. All we're doing is finding publicly available information and drawing our own suppositions. So absolutely, you guys are more than welcome to draw your own conclusions as well, because we'd love to hear them. We don't know. We don't know what the explanation for this stuff is, but it's really starting to make a lot of sense when you connect those dots. Maz says, supposedly a large sunken continent in the Indian Ocean thought to be Lemuria. Yeah, I will do some more research, but we will talk about Lemuria. And I don't know if Lemuria was a rival civilization or if it was part of the Atlantis civilization, but we will certainly be digging into that. Roxanne says, how do you spell that person that made a different globe? It's Johannes Schoener, with an umlaut. I'm going to throw it in the chat one more time for you, Roxanne. So it should be popping up on the screen right now. Johannes Schoener. That O with the two dots above it, that's called an umlaut, and it makes a very different sound than a regular O. So Johannes Schoener globe. And those aren't the only Lemuria and Atlantis aren't the only supposed civilizations we've lost to the oceans. So this rabbit hole is going to get a lot deeper, folks. Again, when we get Rodney on, we'll hopefully have Steve and Doc. We'll go at this thing with pickaxes and dynamite and see if we can't blast away another rock layer and go a little deeper. But question everything, folks. We're at an interesting time in human history where the veneer is being pulled back off a lot of the things we've been taught as truth all these years. We're starting to see that, like we've referred to as soft disclosures, how the government is very quietly admitting the possible existence of Bigfoot and other creatures similar by introducing hunting legislation to include near human chimeras. A chimera is a blending of more than one animal. If you know your chimera from Greek mythology, it had the head of a lion, the head of a goat, and the head of a dragon. So it was a blending of animals. So a chimera is a blending of more than one animal. What are they talking about? Near human chimeras. So those soft disclosures are happening. I mean, we just had a declassified congressional hearing on UFOs. The veneer is peeling, folks, and the more we pick at it, the more of the bigger picture we're going to start to see. So let's keep picking at that picture, folks, because we're going to go deeper on this one, because I think we've, like I was saying, I think we've only scratched the surface of the Atlantis, Antarctica, and possible Hollow Earth connection. And it might connect a lot deeper than that, including Lemuria and even other places on the globe. So Wyatt says, with all the talk of technology of the past civilizations had, what if we are the start over civilization? Dude, I guarantee we are. I mean, there are plenty of examples, down through history where they found stuff. Heck, I'll have to see if I can find the image, but there was a mine, and I believe it was here in the United States. I could be wrong about that, but they found in a seam of coal at like 1,000 feet beneath the surface, in a seam of coal embedded in the rock, was a device that looks for all the world like a cell phone. But the markings on it are different than any numbers that we've ever used. But they found something that deep in a vein of coal that looks like a cell phone. We are not the first civilization to inhabit this planet, and I don't think we're going to be the last. Yeah, Northwest says they found a chariot wheel too. Yeah, they found stuff deep that has no reason being there, and we can't explain how it got there. In England, they found a steel-headed uh, worker's tool in a mine, but there's no way it could have gotten there from thousands of years before, because the mine, they dug into it and found it. And it's still part of the wooden shaft and the head of this steel tool at a depth where they never should have found anything like that. Justin Olfart, they found drill bits. Yeah, they find stuff. From time to time, we find stuff in the deep mines and things like that that we just can't explain. So let's put a pin in this one for tonight. And next Saturday night, we'll go back down the rabbit hole with Rodney and hopefully Doc and Steve, and see where this takes us. Because I think we've just begun to scratch the surface. So we're gonna start winding things down. Robbie, you wanna tell them one more time how to contact you if they're interested in the blades?
Yep. Let me grab the blanks one more time.
I'll throw your contact information up there real quick.
So for anybody that was not in here when we first talked about it, we've now got a few blanks to show some of the designs that we've come up with. Eventually, we'll have them numbered, named, lettered, something or another, to where you can say, "Hey, I want A," or "I want number 5," or whatever. I just spent some time today. Me and DA had been talking about having a way to show everybody, the samples. And it takes a long time to hammer out a blade, but I can do these on the laser printer pretty quick, so I can print out all the designs that we're coming up with. And of course, we're gonna have more than this, but this is just the first ones. So like we said before, if you want to get in on it, send me an email. DA put my email up. Either send me an email if you're wanting a blade, because I'm making a folder where I can keep everybody that's wanting to order one, keep them all in that same email. And 3D, it just depends on what type of knife that I'm making. Right now, most of the stuff is 5150 spring steel, but we'll be getting some other stuff eventually. But right now, most of the stuff we got is the 5150.
Awesome. Hell yeah. I can't wait to start getting some of those blades. It's going to be awesome.
Yep.
Folks, don't forget to set your reminders to join us tomorrow night as we begin Book 2, The Crucible of Ragnarok Rising. So join us tomorrow night as we do Campfire Tales, Book 2 of Ragnarok. We'll start it. So we'll see you guys then, hopefully, and then join us this coming Wednesday night. We haven't got a topic set up yet, but the following Saturday we will do part 2 of this one, and hopefully very soon we'll be joined by Jesus Pay On, and I will reach out to Fred again and see if he's doing okay, and hopefully we can get Fred back on the show sometime soon too. I'll let Fred decide when's good for him. I mean, I'm not going to push him. So our thoughts and prayers are with Fred and his family, and hope everything is good for him. Steve says I'm gonna be there. Awesome. Thank you guys. And again, folks, as we're winding things down, remember the 22 a day foundation. We lose 22 veterans a day to suicide, and that is 22 too many. Reach out to your friends and family that wear a uniform. Doesn't matter what that uniform is. Let them know you're thinking about them. Let them know you care, because our first responders and our veterans, we owe those folks a debt of gratitude we'll never be able to fully repay. As one keeps us safe in our beds, and the other keeps us free. So let's remember all of them, especially not the holidays, because the holidays are tough on a lot of folks, especially some of the veterans that have experienced. Let's just say they've experienced, as Declan would say, they've seen the elephant. Reach out to your friends and family. Let them know you care about them. Let them know you think about them, and let's get 22 down to 0. I think that's an attainable goal. So again, reach out to them, let them know you care, wish them a Merry Christmas, give them a hug, tell them you love them. And we're gonna wind her up with our toast. And it doesn't matter what y'all's drinking. You guys can lift a glass of whatever. It doesn't matter. We've been closing the show out with a toast from The Parting Glass. And it's a wonderful little beautiful Irish tune. And I'm very proud of it. And I hope to continue to close out with a toast. And this is for the ones we've lost along the way. And the quote says, "But since it fell into my lot that I should rise and you should not, I'll gently rise and softly call. Good night and joy be to you all." Good night, everyone. Bless you all. Happy holidays.
Thank you for joining us. Catch us again Wednesdays and Saturdays on DAExMachiNation. A special thanks to all our channel members and Patreon supporters. Please make sure to like, share, and subscribe.